So maybe you've seen some cool, inspiring videos, maybe you're just fresh out of university or college and you want to get out and away from the ski resorts and out into that fresh snow and go out and have some fun there. But how do you actually get there? Well, let's dive in. So how do you get into backcountry skiing? My name's Dave Searle and I'm an IFMGA guide based out in Chamonix, France. So for the context of this video, what is an IFMGA guide? Well, basically my job is to take people out into the mountains in the winter or the summer, either skiing or climbing. And whilst we're out there, I'm teaching you or giving you skills that you can work on so you can improve your level irrespective of what your goals are. Your goal might just be to climb a certain peak and you want to be guided on that peak, but your goals might also be that you want to head out autonomously with your friends and go and have a safe, fun, enjoyable time out in the mountains. So how do we actually get to that point where we can be autonomous and we can head out with our friends or in groups or part of a club so we can feel like a valued member of that team and we are understanding the risks that we're taking and we can make good decisions based on that understanding. Before we get stuck into what you need to learn and bases you need to cover and courses and everything that you need to do, it's probably worth understanding what backcountry skiing is, because there's also a lot of other terminology that's based around that. So you might have heard terminology like freeride skiing or off-piste skiing, backcountry or slack country or side country, all these types of terms. Now in the context of skiing in Europe, we have on-piste skiing and off-piste skiing. Now, really, you can categorize those two quite succinctly like that, as if you're on the groomed area of snow where the piste basher has driven down the mountain and they've made those nice corduroy lines. When you're between those poles and those markers on the piste, that's on-piste skiing. Now, on-piste skiing is safe from avalanche risk. There's been a couple of very unique examples where avalanches have actually crossed the piste because the control work that's been done hasn't been quite enough to keep that piste from being safe. But I would say on the whole, every piste that you're going to be skiing on is going to be controlled in some way, shape or form by a separate entity like a company that looks after the safety on the mountain, for example. So what does that basically mean? If you stay between the poles, you're basically on a safe area, and as soon as you go off the side of the poles, you're actually technically off-piste skiing, and you should definitely have the skills and insurance in place to be able to do that. Now, the off-piste skiing that's right next to the piste could be really busy. There could be loads of people skiing there, there could be some fresh snow, and it's really easy to head out there and ski around in the fresh snow, and it'll probably be okay. Probably, but it might not be. There's a hazy line between just near the piste and actually out in the backcountry where you're having to make your own decisions about where to go, about the snow conditions, about the avalanche conditions, and all these types of things. When we're off-piste skiing in Europe, we generally have safety equipment with us, like an avalanche transceiver, a shovel, and a probe. You could also add in an ABS bag to that, but I will talk a little bit more about that in a later video, actually. Just having that equipment isn't enough, though. You need to really know how to use it, and you need to know how to avoid having to use it as well. And this is where avalanche education comes in. Now in Europe, there's no industry standard of how much avalanche education you need to do to be able to head out and head off the piste. In fact, you don't really need to do anything. There's nobody that's going to check you when you head out into the backcountry, away from the lifts, away from the pistes. So what I would recommend is if you're going to head onto off-piste terrain, so away from those groomed runs, that you at least have 1 day of avalanche training under your belt. That 1 day of training, though, it isn't enough. If you're going to be heading out with your friends and going out into off-piste terrain or going out ski touring further into the backcountry and actually dealing with more and more hazards and more risks. 1 day of training is just not going to be enough. During that 1 day of training, it's likely that you'll learn about the avalanche equipment that you need, so the transceiver, shovel and probe as the bare minimum. You'll also learn some of the basic rescue techniques. You'll also learn some basic snow safety skills as well. So how to assess slopes to know whether or not that could be avalanche terrain, and whether to know that if I'm stood here, am I at risk from an avalanche hitting me from above? And also what happens if I ski over that way? Am I at risk of setting off an avalanche and being caught in an avalanche? You'd also start to understand what the consequences of an avalanche might be. Is it just going to be a short ride down onto a flattening? Is it going to be getting buried? Is it going to be taken off a cliff or buried into a gully? So you start to understand how everything fits together on that first one-day course. If you've never done any off-piste skiing before and you do that one-day foundation course, I would say that you are already starting to become a valued member of a team with an experienced leader, like a mountain guide or somebody who's done many seasons of skiing and has a really good understanding about snow safety. But after that one-day course, you're not necessarily going to be able to assess the snowpack, be able to forecast and plan what you're going to be skiing, and also you're not really going to be able to deal with those really stressful situations if there is a big avalanche that happens. Now is probably a good time to talk about the difference between knowledge and experience and how they both kind of fit together in you improving your level and have a better understanding of avalanche risks and safety in the backcountry. So knowledge can be gained in various different ways from various different avenues. It could be watching a video, it could be doing an online course, it could be doing an in-person course with a guide. It could also be reading books or talking to other people about their experiences and what they have learned. Experience is basically experiencing things, but what you don't want to be doing is experiencing an avalanche, because that's where you've really made a big mistake. In my 16 years or so of skiing around the Alps, I've been in a couple of minor avalanche incidents, and I can tell you they're pretty scary. If you didn't get the knowledge and you just head out straight away and try and get the experience, you don't really know what you don't know, because you haven't learned all these things that you need to understand about backcountry skiing. So it's definitely worth starting with some kind of course and then building on that course with your own experience, and then maybe doing another course and building on that with further experience. This is where a platform like Oak, which is a smartphone app that I've been working on over the last year, is hopefully really going to come into its own. On Oak, not only can you book onto avalanche courses with myself or with other guides in the Alps, but you can also keep track of those courses via your logbook. So once you've gained that knowledge on the course, you can then use that to get experience by planning a tour with other people on the app and going out and sharing that knowledge together and understanding, learning and growing. I'm running a full set of avalanche courses this winter in January in the Alps, so if you're interested, you can head down there, click on the link, download the app, create your profile all completely for free, and you can sign up to one of those courses. As hopefully demand increases, we'll do more dates, and also we'll add extra guides in and other parts of the Alps who can also run these courses too. So let's say you've done your first introductory day of avalanche training. What next? Can I head out there? Can I do things? Can I start to actually get into off-piste terrain? I would say yeah, but with caution. Probably best to do that alongside a guide or a very experienced leader that you already know and trust. After doing one day of training, it would certainly be a really good idea to do another day of training after that. On the Oak app, this second day of training would be called the Avalanche Progression Day. During this day, we would dive in a little bit deeper into some of the subjects of snow science, so understanding the different layers in the snow and what can create avalanches. We're also going to further your knowledge about rescue scenarios, so you feel really happy and comfortable doing more complex rescue situations if there is an avalanche. We'll get deeper into terrain management and group management, so you can basically avoid those areas that could be dangerous for avalanches in the conditions that we have. So after that progression course, you'd probably be feeling pretty confident to be able to head out with other people of similar experience level and be able to ski around off-piste, maybe do some short tours if you already have the touring skills in place. But perhaps you haven't done any uphill walking with skis and you want to be able to head to places where you can park up somewhere and ski tour off into the mountains, or you want to be able to do a tour that actually leaves the resort where you put skins on the bottom of your skis and you start walking up and away out of the resort. So that's where a third day of Avalanche training would become really useful. The third day of training that's available on the Oak app is called the Backcountry Tour Planning Day. Now the idea with this day is that you can not only learn the skills that you can actually walk uphill with the appropriate equipment, so for that you'll need ski touring boots, ski touring skis and bindings, and also skins which fit under the bottom of your skis. We would spend time learning about all that equipment and how to use it, and then also simultaneously be looking at maps and understanding how to actually plan a ski tour so you can avoid avalanche terrain on the way up as much as possible. We'll also learn protocol of how you can cross areas that you could be at risk of avalanches in a safer way. And we'll also look at places that you can actually stop and do your transition so that you are in a safe, protected area. Now, I would say if you've done those 3 days of avalanche training, which also equates to kind of the bare minimum that you would do if you were in the US as well, which would be the AIRE level 1. After those 3 days of training, you'll be feeling pretty confident that you'll be able to head out on a backcountry tour, which means walking uphill with skis, be able to head out of the resort, be able to find a reasonably safe path up the mountain and ski back down with relative safety. And also you're heading off in the right direction for learning how to stay safe in avalanche terrain. Now, you notice that I didn't say that you could be totally safe and solid after 3 days of avalanche training. The mountains are an incredibly dynamic and ever-changing place. It's very, very difficult to remove all risk altogether, and even the top level instructors and guides and avalanche forecasters also make mistakes. Saying that you've done 3 days of training and I know everything and I'm ready to go is a little bit naive. But don't worry, I was there at some point as well, and plenty of other people have been in that situation before. A really important thing to think about when you get to that point where you feel like you have enough skills and knowledge but you're still fairly new to it is to really question your decision making. Question whether, am I making the right decision here? Is this based off of something tangible, or is it based off of a feeling? Do I actually understand what's going on with the snow, or am I just making some assumptions? And what happens if I do ski this slope and I set off an avalanche? It's a huge learning journey to embark on to understand everything that goes on in the mountains. I feel like I'm still learning myself even after 16 years, and I'm sure I'll still feel like I'm learning in 20 more years' time. Also, avalanches are just one of the risks that we have in the mountains when we go backcountry skiing. Certainly around Chamonix, it's very easy to find yourself in glaciated terrain. So for that, you need to understand how to travel in glaciated terrain, how to rescue somebody from a crevasse if they fall in, how to rescue yourself from a crevasse if you fall in. Is there a way that you can climb up the rope, for example? Also, with a lot of bad things that happen, there's also probably some injuries that are involved. So you also need to have first aid skills and potentially even rescue skills to be able to pull somebody or drag somebody out of the mountain on an improvised sled, for example. Sometimes in the mountains in winter, the avalanche risk can be super, super low, but the risk of sliding on the hard snow that's around could be really high. So you need to understand how your boots interact with the snow if you're to get off your skis, and what happens if you were to fall over on that slope that doesn't actually seem that steep, but you could slide for a long way if you were to fall over or crash. There's many things that you need to learn about backcountry skiing, but definitely the place to start with is some avalanche courses. Once you've completed those avalanche courses, it's also really good to be able to have a peer group of people around you that you can learn with, bounce ideas off, talk about things, share knowledge, all that kind of stuff. And that's why we've set up groups on the Oak app as well. So you can ask questions on there, you can plan tours with other people, you can gain more experience and more knowledge through that platform. If you've got any questions about getting into backcountry skiing, or what the difference between off-piste skiing and backcountry skiing and ski touring and all those types of things, then feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'll try and answer as many of those questions as I can. So one final thought before we sign off on this video. Just make sure that when you're getting into backcountry skiing or skiing away from the lifts, is that you're doing it in a safe and sustainable way. Question what it is you don't know. Question whether you're just getting dragged along with the group. Question it whether you actually know what you're doing or whether you're just making assumptions about something. Avalanches kill people. Every winter, people die in all other different types of ways in the backcountry as well. So make sure that you have the skills, the knowledge, and the experience that you need before you head out there and do these things. So really come at it from a safe and conservative angle, and that should hopefully give you a long and rewarding career in the backcountry.